What's going on, Sky Squad? We are back in the building. And before we get into this episode, of course, we have Adam from Up and Adam on the line. And we're going to get into all things Salt Lake City. And we're going to get into a little bit of Atlanta news as well. But before we do that, we just got to address the elephant in the room. And by elephant, I mean the Jen Shah of it all. Okay. Now, listen, we're not calling Jen Shah an elephant, but we're talking about this issue being the elephant. And it really stemmed from Whitney's appearance on Watch What Happens Live last night. Okay. Now, on the episode, Whitney was asked by Andy Cohen about whether or not, or what she thought about Jen's business dealings and where she felt like she was getting her money from. And so Whitney said that she thought it was just maybe a sugar daddy or something like that, even though Jen Shah is married to Coach Shah. So anyway, it appears as though our friends over at the Real Housewives franchise have gotten a hold of one of Jen Shah's either IG stories or tweets, because she was tweeting about it as well. And she says, Whitney Wild Rose, contrary to what you believe, Black and brown couples are capable of being successful, intelligent, educated, and civically responsible contributing members of society. Don't disrespect my family, period. Coach Shah is my sugar daddy. Hashtag Mary was right. Now, with regards to the Mary was right, last week we talked about how Mary called out Whitney for being the RACIST word. So, what do you guys think about this? Let us know in the chatterization. You know, it's very interesting that Jen wrote this while she's also being alleged to have all of these money schemes going on. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, but we'll get into more of that as the video goes along. What's going on, Sky Squad? We are back in the building. As you guys can see, we are joined here by Adam from Up and Adam. And Adam, we got to talk about something real quick because the news just broke. Cynthia Bailey is leaving Real Housewives of Atlanta. Or let me read you the first thing that she says in the post, because I think that's important. After much thought and consideration, I have made the very difficult and heartfelt decision not to return for the next season of the Real Housewives of Atlanta. Was this her decision or not? Chime in. What do you think?
So I think absolutely not. You know, we've seen people exit before, and Bethany Frankel, Nene Leakes, they've made it known in the past that they are probably two of maybe a handful, maybe 3 or 4 housewives who have actually left on their own. And we know that Bravo lets you make exit statements. If you guys remember Vanderpump Rules, when we saw 8 cast members get let go between season 8 and season 9, all of their exit statements looked pretty similar. So they did say later down the line, we have no control over our exit statements. These were the statements that Bravo gave to us. And I have a feeling that this is no different.
No, that's some interesting tea right there. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What do you think about that? Because I feel like when I quit, or excuse me, if I'm fired, I can see if they had to get it approved, so to speak, but let me write my own exit statement at least. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I think, we have to remember too, NBC, the network, Bravo, it's all a business. So when they have cast members that leave, they don't really want them to take the Nene Leakes route where, we obviously know she was very intense, and she felt like she was treated a certain way and she wanted to vocalize that. So I don't want to take anything away from her, but when she left, she kind of dragged the network down and let everyone know how she feels like she was being treated. So I feel like they have sort of damage control, trying to make sure that when people exit, they're not exiting their own way, that they have control over what they're putting out there. And also Cynthia Bailey, I feel like, is going to play this very smart. She knows that in the future, like Sheree Whitfield, people can come and go. She loves this franchise. She's been around for a long time. It's been a big part of her life. I think she would be hopeful, like, okay, well, maybe this next season, it's not going to be the best season, so maybe they'll need me after that. So she's going to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm. And I think that it also leaves her, I mean, especially with this type of, exit message, it does leave her open to do other things with the network, because as we can see, they're doing the Housewives, spinoff, ex-wives in the Berkshires, and who knows whatever else they could come up with. So I do agree. It's always best when you can leave a network to leave on the best of terms and to leave with those good feelings intact. Andy Cohen is, making joking messages to her about something that she said, I think on the reunion one time. So I think that this is the perfect way to exit. And I think it was about time. Are you excited about the next season of Atlanta?
Definitely. Actually, you just said something that the second season of All Stars should have been called Ex-Wives All Stars, because none of them are actually current housewives. That was shady. But yes, I am excited for the next season. I still want Portia Williams to show up. I'm hoping that she comes through, because that would be a huge storyline, because Kenya Moore and Marlo Hampton, they've been very vocal about Portia's relationship with Simon Gobadia. I wish they would have kept Fallon around so we could have seen that, situation where they went head to head, but now she's obviously in a much different place. She's pregnant. She's moving on with her. So no, but I'm still excited. I'm also excited for our newbie. There are a few people who I don't know what they bring to the table, but we have enough shady people in the group that I think it'll be a good season. And a lot of the restrictions have lifted. So it's not, we saw Atlanta, New York, Salt Lake City, Beverly Hills, Orange County, Dallas. They all went through pandemic restrictions, COVID restrictions, and now we're seeing that kind of lighten up a little bit. So maybe we'll get to see better trips, especially if they're sending the All-Stars to an exotic location.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We got to see better trips. We have got to see better trips moving forward now.
Right.
I want to move on to this little tidbit right here that we talked about in the intro. What do you think about this? Are you in agreement with, how do you feel about it in general? Because I don't want to ask if you're in agreement with that statement, because it's the whole, when you call someone, when you say someone is a racist, that you really have to have strong evidence to back that up, because that's something that people can sue about. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So what do you think about this whole situation between Whitney and Jen?
I say the same thing about calling somebody a racist, and then also calling out somebody's spouse for cheating. And when you have these huge allegations that are completely damaging to somebody's brand, and you don't know how people are going to respond out or to them out in public, it's a hard one. And I feel like if you're going to label someone with any of this, you should definitely have receipts. Now, I don't want to take anything away from Jen Shah and how she feels, but the way I understood that conversation last night on Watch What Happens Live, and mind you, I love Jen Shah on season 1. Now all of these allegations against her, it makes it really hard to stand by her, because she's going up against the Southern District of New York with a 98% prosecution rate. Over 1 million pages of documents, 100+ victims, alleged fraud, facing up to 50 years in prison. I think after saying all of that, you can see why anyone would question your business, how you were making your money, your business practices. I don't personally feel like this was a racial situation. Like, she was looking at Jen Shah as a woman of color, wondering, oh, you're a woman of color, how do you have money? I don't think it was coming from that at all. I think it was, oh, wow, you're being indicted on 2 counts of fraud. There's a whole telemarketing ring here. Everyone is taking plea deals. People are getting sentenced to 7, 8, 9 years. That's why I'm questioning your business.
Yeah. I think that's an accurate statement, especially because she didn't bring it up. She was asked that question. And right. I think many people were wondering exactly how Jen got her money anyway. I know I was one of them. So, at the end of the day, I didn't think it was about whether or not, Jen was a woman of color or not. I think it was mostly about your business, as you have described it on national television, is confusing.
Right. And, we just found out that Coach Shah, he's making over $500,000 a year. That's an amazing salary, right? He's making a lot of money. And after finding out all of his credentials and everything, nobody would look at Coach Shah, at least in my opinion, I'm just not cut from that cloth, and be like, oh, how does this man have money? How did he get this job? No, he's worked his tail off for it. So I understand how he has the money that he has, but what wasn't adding up is how Jen Shah was explaining her business. And 2, you have a $10,000 a month rental. You have Gucci, Chanel, Hermes. These are expensive items. Same thing with Erica Girardi. Looking into her closet, some of these bags cost anywhere from $10,000 to $100,000. That is where people are questioning exactly what's going on, especially when you're saying, well, this is assistant number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I spent $50,000 on this party. That's the problem. You start boasting about your wealth. Well, people want to know where it comes from.
Yep. It's a natural human curiosity, especially on a national television like this. I want to move into the episode, and we're talking about business. And so we might as well continue that conversation because we start off the episode at Beauty Lab, and we see that Heather is, in terms of revenue, they've doubled what they made last year, likely due to the show, which is awesome. But Whitney calls her to jiggle her tatas, and she really wants to know what Heather wants to really tell her, me and Jen are besties again. What are you going to do about Jen? What did you feel about that conversation? Because I felt like, girl, how do y'all go back to being besties that quick after she just called you a racist? But it does not make sense to me.
I think Heather Gay is one of those friends who she keeps on calling herself a ride or die friend. But honestly, and I feel like sometimes that sounds a little cliche, but with her, I see it. I think that she really wants to be accepted by Jen Shah. And even though she's looking at her in the face, she's like, I have these tweets with these verified check marks. You're calling me a manatee, a sea mammal, an ogre, the R word. And Jen Shah's just looking at her in the face like, I have a team who handles my Twitter. I'm not the one saying these things. She's like, okay, well, then I believe you. Can we please move forward? I feel like Heather Gay does not want the conflict. But after a while, like we saw in season 1 of her being steamrolled, she's eventually going to have a few cocktails and stick up for herself. I don't understand this dynamic. Neither does Whitney, neither does Lisa Barlow, nor does Meredith Marks. I don't get it. I would not be friends with Jen Shah if I were Heather Gay because it seems very one-sided.
Especially considering that, Heather is a legit businesswoman and Heather has a business that is thriving and She has 3 beautiful young daughters. I don't quite understand why she still has this, what comes across as a mentality of needing to be accepted by Jen or some of the more popular girls in the crew, because regardless of whatever they have going on, she has her own thing going on.
That's the thing too, is I look at Heather as one of the front runners on the show. Like, I'm not sleeping on Heather Gay. If anything, Lisa Barlow, I'd be sleeping on her a little bit. Mary Cosby, a little bit over here, because we see Mary filming in her closet or with her son, but then she last year was complaining about being excluded from events thanks to Jen Shah. But now this year, Jen Shah's inviting her to the events like the ice fishing, and she's not showing up, which I don't agree with because I feel like as a housewife, you should be contractually obligated to make appearances when, you're called into them. But I don't know, for Heather, like you said, she has a successful business. She's witty. She's hilarious. She's just a fun time. I don't think she needs to be accepted by anyone. I hate that she has that mentality, but I feel like that might stem a little bit from going through what she has with her religion and her ex-husband.
Mm-hmm. We're going to get into that just a little bit more. We next see Jen and Lisa. They meet up to go ski biking, which I've never heard of, but it looks kind of fun. Jen is planning an ice fishing adventure for the rest of the ladies. She's invited Meredith. She's also invited Mary. She doesn't understand Meredith's anger with her, and Lisa doesn't understand Heather and Jen's friendship, as you described earlier.
Right.
They get on Lisa trying to smooth things over with Whitney and Heather, and she doesn't know how to get through to them. I don't really think that there's much discussion about anything there that we haven't already talked about.
Right.
We do see Mary at the ice cream parlor or the bakery or something with her son, Robert Jr. She's uber concerned about him wearing a Jimmy, which we know to be a condom, okay? And what he's got going on with these girls. I don't know what the obsession is this season with Robert Jr. and his dating life, but that seems to be of prime concern to her during this season. And where is Robert Sr.? Is he still in Orlando?
Someone needs to investigate this. We need to find out where Robert Sr. is because I'm questioning. And, Mary Cosby's giving me kind of Lisa Rinna vibes this season because we watched Lisa Rinna on Beverly Hills and she never has a storyline unless it has to do with her kids. And she uses that when really we want to know more about Lisa Rinna's husband. We want to know, what are they mentioning? And for Mary, we want to know more about your church and all of these alleged or allegations that you're getting slammed with. I want to know about that. I don't want to know about your husband or your son wearing a Jimmy. And she comes off interesting to me because she's like telling him, oh, why do you eat like that? You need to eat this way. You have bad manners. And then she's chewing with her mouth open while she's like chastising her child. I don't get it. I don't know. I'm still trying, guys. I'm trying.
Mary Cosby, I just still have to say, Mary Cosby is peak Housewives. She's filled with chaotic energy. And I think you need at least one of those kind of women on every show because it makes it more interesting. Now, I would equate her, and I know I'm going to probably get some flack for this, but she has the same level of, not the same. Okay. She has, you know, it's like having a Kathy Hilton, and people are going to say they're not the same. And I get it. I understand. Kathy comes across as more endearing than Mary Cosby, who can sometimes come across as more offensive. But you have to now, I feel like, have that quirk factor that can add some comedy to what can sometimes be very intense, serious situations.
Right.
I think I described it, accurately. I hope.
I thought you were going to say a different housewife. So
what do you think I was going to say?
I thought you were going to say, because I've seen a lot of fans chime in on Mary Cosby when she's giving you the eyes and stuff. I thought you were going to say a little Ramona-like with the kookiness.
Oh.
But
I mean, I can go there too a little bit, you know, the kooky / offensive things that she says, but sometimes Mary's on point. Like sometimes when she steps out of the closet of her mind and she speaks, sometimes she's very on point, as she was with Meredith later on.
But then sometimes too, and I'm trying, sometimes too, she gives us a little bit of hypocrisy. Like, you're telling people they should have manners, you're like carrying yourself a certain way, and then you sit on somebody's couch at their event and shat yourself? No, ma'am. That is not okay. So,
and therein lies the chaotic controversy of it all. I love it. Heather has a conversation with her daughters about going to college, because one of her daughters is going to college, and whether or not she will continue to be Mormon. This seems to be, interestingly enough, I feel like this is really more of a scene that we probably should have seen last season, because I would like to dive further into this whole idea of whether or not someone is going to be Mormon or not, but in a different way. And I can't really describe it, but it's just not giving me what I feel like I need yet. I want to go deeper.
I feel like this is extremely complex. And I talked about this with my fiance, Jason, because he grew up Mormon, right? And then once, it came out that he was a gay man, they look at you a little bit different from what he explained to me. So he's no longer a practicing Mormon. Now for Heather, and he did say there's a lot of judgment passed, within the church, if you're not there when you're supposed to be there and you're not consistent with showing up, that they might look at you sideways. So my question is, while I appreciate her in supporting her daughter, if her youngest daughter still wants to go to church and she still wants to be a part of that, if she shows up after being on the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City and saying everything that she said, are they going to look at her out of the side of their eye and be like, oh, that's that? There she is. That's the one that they called a sea mammal. And she talked about the church and they called her a good time girl. Stay away from her. We're going to pray for her. I can see it.
And I think those are the types of complexities I feel like I want to dive more into. I don't know. It just seemed like last night's conversation was a conversation that I had already seen on this show before with her daughters. And so I wanted something else. And I can't describe what that is. You're
like salivating for them to juice this orange and get something more out of it. More complex. I get it. I feel like there's layers here, but I want to know more about Heather. While I appreciate the housewives and seeing their kid situation, like, unless you're Jenny Wynn and Carlin, I don't want to see too much of the family dynamic. I just want to know more about Heather, her dating life, her business, how she's doing. More of that. Her own personal journey.
I can understand that. Speaking of getting to know more about someone, we actually go into Meredith's house. I guess it's her house, wherever she is. She's got some racks of clothes, okay? And she's going over some blazers for a new collection that's coming in. She's invited some friends over to preview the collection, Mary Cosby included. This was funny. Mary, who probably needs all the friends on the show that she can get. Then when asked about Meredith's style, she cannot seem to articulate Meredith's style, because in one breath, you know that Mary is wanting to drag Meredith's style, but on her right brain, she's thinking, no, I better not say anything negative about her because she's my only other ally on this show. So where does Mary go with this? She just toes the line and she says, Meredith's style is Meredith's style. And I was thinking to myself, Mary, you who wears every fashion label in the books all at once, you're critiquing Meredith Marks' style, which is also her trademark because it is part of her brand. So I just thought that was very interesting. And this does go back into the chaos that you were speaking of earlier with regards to Mary, but I just thought it was so interesting.
I mean, I would picture, like, if you asked Mary, what are you wearing out of your closet today, Mary? I feel like she would be like, well, this is a little bit of vintage, but some boho with some classy elegance. Like, I'm going to the beach, but I'm also going to a black tie event, kind of like glamour, understated. And it's like, wait, what the hell did you just say? We got a little bit of everything. And I feel like for Mary Cosby, her fashions, it shows, it kind of represents how chaotic she is in the first place. And if you follow Meredith Marks on Instagram or any social media, you see when she's glammed up and she's dressed up in her fashions, I think she looks amazing. I love that she has the signature kind of blazer jacket, and she's always really accentuating the ice because that's her brand. She's always trying to sell the jewelry. If anybody, go after Heather Gay's ponytail that we saw at the beginning, opening, whatever. Go after that, whatever that was.
What was that thing dangling down?
It was like it was kind of like listen, I don't want to drag her, but it was like a little rat tail.
I mean, it was just like this.
But I asked Jason, I said, I feel like that would be kind of like a pioneer woman hairstyle. I don't know if that, not around the neck. You wrapped it around the neck too. But I feel like that's what that would be. Go after that. Go after one of the other women. But Meredith, for her style, I don't think so. But most of them pretty much they all have like a good style. I wouldn't drag anyone on here. It's not like we're seeing Denise Richards show up to a Beverly Hills glam event in like a crop top and jeans. Like
and her marching boots. Okay.
And her marching boots. Yeah. She obviously didn't fit in with that. Or Leah McSweeney showing up in like blue, green, orange zebra print to Ramona's house at the Hamptons for like an all white party. They're very different. And these women
started on Leah. Oh.
Yeah. But Mary Cosby is the one with the most chaotic fashions. She is the one that they could all go in on, and nobody's going in on her. So like you said, this is kind of your only ally here. You need to throw her a bone. I didn't understand that Mary Cosby, when did Mary and Brooks get so close? That's the part I was like,
okay, so here's the thing. We do learn that Mary and Brooks have become super close, allegedly. And I say allegedly because the way it was described to us was that Mary knew all about everything that was going on with Brooks and with Jen, yet it had to be explained to her exactly what was going on. It was almost as if she had never heard it before. So how did they become so close over these things when she had no knowledge of them?
See, I feel like this is where we see the editors and the producers come in, because this was obviously, she was told before she got there, hey, listen, we're going to have you talk about what's going on with Brooks and the Jen Shaw stuff and the tweets. We need you to look surprised. That way they can explain it to you, and then you can give your honest reaction, like how it was the first time you heard it. And I feel like that's what we got out of this, because we know she knew. She's over here trolling on Twitter too. We see her, especially because she had her account not activated for a while where she wasn't posting. She wasn't letting people comment on her posts. I feel like the network reached out and they're like, nope, that's not how it works. You need to open that account back up. And while she was going ghost on all of us, I'm sure she saw what was happening with Jen and Brooks.
This is the first time, though, not the first time. This is one of those times where Mary does give some sage advice to Meredith with regards to the situation. She basically tells her, why haven't you just called her, picked up the phone and told her to stop doing what she's doing? You need to have a conversation with her about that. And then as she's sailing down the right path, she then stops. Wait, I have to poot. Are you serious? Did that just happen? I'm watching TV, and because last night's episode of Potomac was so wild, I was literally asking myself, what am I watching today? What is happening on television today? Because did Mary Cosby just stop the scene to announce that she had to poot and then say that that's how she feels talking about this whole Jen Shah situation? I was done. I was done.
I get so uncomfortable with this stuff. I don't like seeing it on New York. I don't like seeing Sonia and Ramona defecate on the floor. I don't want to hear you do that. I feel like that's just not for the cameras. That's not for us. And then you come over to somebody's event, you sit on her white couch and you shat yourself. No. And then you're preaching manners to somebody over here. I don't get it. Again, I'm still trying, you guys. I'm trying with Mary Cosby.
I don't like the poop stuff either. And you know what? It really infuriated me. Season 1 of Dallas, and I don't know if you watched that season, but there was a lot of poop talk back then as well. And I was like, this franchise is not going to go anywhere if you guys keep relying on poop and shark jokes.
Yeah, it makes me uncomfortable. I get grossed out super easy with that kind of stuff. And the fact that she did that on camera and she wanted a moment for it, she didn't even try to hide it. She was just like, wait, hold on, stop. I need a second, quiet. And Brooks is like, what the hell is going on? And Meredith is like, oh, she's doing it. Like, what? Why? I just think it's gross.
Next scene. Did I miss a scene where we got with Jenny and her husband? Was that last night?
Yeah, that was last night.
Let's talk about that real quick because it made me mad. Essentially, what's going on with Jenny is, and we're not even going to get into the scene. The topic of discussion is basically that her husband wants another child. Her husband works. He's in the medical community. So when she tells her husband that it would be dangerous for her to have another child, he's still sitting there in the scene like, I want another baby. Where is the concern for your wife?
Yeah, I think this made a lot of people upset because, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I've said this. I have family members who have had miscarriages. I'm sure we all probably know someone. And even if we don't realize we probably do know someone who's had a miscarriage. And from what I hear, obviously I don't have experience with it, but it takes such a toll on a woman's body. And not only it's not like she had 1 or 2, she had 9 miscarriages and 3 C-sections. So she's pretty much saying at this point, we have 3 healthy, beautiful, amazing, talented kids. We have a great family. I don't want to put my health in jeopardy or give birth to an unhealthy baby because of the complications that I have. And he's not hearing that. All he's hearing is, I want more babies. I'm sure that he made a lot of people mad over this. A lot.
It was cringeworthy. I didn't quite understand it.
No, it's selfish.
It's very selfish. Very selfish and shocking to me. But I guess one thing that I can respect is that he did not change his stance because he knew he was being filmed for a TV show. Because
that's why he should have changed his stance.
I mean, no, he should change his stance because it is a danger to your wife.
Right. Yes. But
what I have to say that, I mean, I don't respect his rationale. I just respect that he didn't budge from his thoughts about it because he's being filmed on TV. And the reason I respect that, because it is real. And I think that in order to make really good TV, people cannot be afraid to be real, because it is going to piss some people off. It is going to make people cringe. But if it's real, I'd rather him be and stand in that than to change for the sake of the fact that there are cameras there.
But, also we know coming up because of the super trailer of the season that eventually he's going to suggest that maybe they bring on a sister wife. And it kind of, you have to look at it from Jenny's mind. She's probably thinking in her head, so because you think I can't, it almost like making her feel like less of a woman because she can't or doesn't want to offer up more babies. So now you're going to find just another woman who you don't even know yet, you're not even in love with, but because she can offer you a fourth, fifth, and sixth child, so you're going to do that and make your wife feel belittled in that way. Like, I believe they're Catholic. Even Jason said to me, he's like, that's not a religion that I would normally associate sister wives with. I don't know where that's coming from. I don't get it. Honestly, if I were Jenny, I would, not Butterface.
I would have cursed him out in that moment. Yes. I mean, and granted, like I said earlier, I respect him for standing in his truth, but I don't respect how he feels about that situation, because I think that it does. I can see how that would be or make someone feel less than, because she's not willing to put her life at risk to please you.
Yeah. I wish guys could carry and she could look at him and be like, okay, so you carry the baby.
That part.
You know what I mean? You go have a C-section. You carry like seahorses. The male seahorse carries the babies.
You better enjoy these kids that you already have. So next we see Jen being escorted by her lackey, Stuart, previously known as, and they're going ice fishing. Whitney and Heather are headed out to the ice. Everybody gets out there, and Meredith is allegedly not coming. Mary says she don't want to be bothered with sitting out on a lake, so she gets a pass and she gets out of it. Jen is now calling herself Zen Jen, and I'm wondering, was there some Zen memo that went out amongst the housewives for this season that they need to start including that name and that catchphrase onto their name? But Lisa arrives, she hugs Whitney, which is very nice, and then Meredith shows up, and so it's time for the showdown. What are your thoughts on the conversation between Jen and Meredith?
Well, before I
and everyone else's role in it,
can I ask you a question really quick?
Ask away while I twirl on my Heather ponytail.
Who do you find to be more Zen, Jen or Wynn?
Neither.
Oh. Okay. So back to the conversation. My thoughts on it. Jen kind of looked like, oh, she's here. Like I was kind of hoping she wouldn't show up, but she's showing up. I love that Meredith is trying to make a moment by being like, I'm not coming, but I'm going to come anyways. And she shows up. When she sits down, Jen looks completely uncomfortable having to sit down next to her. And then boom, here we get the conversation. Meredith is very transparent about the fact, I don't like, what did I tell you? I told you at the reunion, I will have nothing to do with you if you talk about my family. If you do anything associated with my family and poor taste, we're done. Jen's like, yeah. And she's acting like she has no knowledge of where Meredith is about to go with this, which blows my mind. And she's like, okay, so what about the tweets? And Jen looks around. She pans. Whitney's over here like trying to listen, but not staring across the table. So she doesn't have somebody ream her for staring at their conversation. And then she's like, what are you talking about, the tweets? I don't know what you're talking about. She's like, don't make me pull out my phone, Jen. And then she pulls out the phone and she shows her and she's like, I have a team. I have people who do social media for me. I don't get where this is coming from. You can't use that excuse. Last night you went on Twitter when you were Watch What Happens Live with Whitney Rose. Was that your team? Was the C mammal comment your team? Was the R word your team? The ogre your team? The alleged phobic tweets? That was your team. Who is a part of your team? Now we know that apparently there's some alleged crooks a part of your team because, well, we know that's going on. But who's a part of your team because they need to be fired?
Was it Stuart?
Probably. It probably was.
Or assistant number 8.
What was that?
I don't know. My next question for you is this. Jen brings up, well, what about my kids?
I would have said, no, I think Meredith handled this the right way. Meredith looked at her, she processed it for like 3.2 seconds. And she almost wanted to say, like, what about your kids? But she looked at her and she's like, what have I ever said or done to hurt your kids? And Jen looked and she's like, oh, I didn't know she's going to say that. She's thinking for a second, she's pondering her thoughts, and she's like, well, you don't think my kids go to school and have to go out and hear about their mom's hoo-ha because of what Brooks said? And what we found out after from Watch What Happens Live, from Meredith Marks talking about this, Jen Shah was not told, not once, not twice, 3 times by her assistants at Meredith's house, put your hoo-ha away. Jen, you're not wearing underwear. Put your hoo-ha away. This shouldn't be a surprise. So after that point, you didn't get Paris Hilton where the paparazzi fall on the ground and try to take a photo up your skirt. You were doing this for a moment, and that was the moment that you got. Just like Erica Girardi, Pantygate on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. You wanted that moment. You got that moment. You asked for it. That has nothing to do. I would ask you, well, how do your kids feel? Because that was you. That wasn't Brooks like saying, oh, look, I got a pap shot of her hoo-ha. I don't get it.
And at the end of the day, I mean, he said that he feels uncomfortable by her doing that. That's pretty much the worst thing that he said.
Yeah, and to be fair, if I had my mom's friend, I had one time, listen, we were out on a boat when I was a kid, and I had my stepmom's friend who was on the boat, and she was wasted and just a mess. I couldn't stand this woman, and she was just so vulgar and gross, and she ends up hanging off of the back of the boat, pulls down her bottom half, and hangs her butt over the boat, and is sitting there holding onto the railing and just peeing all over the side of the boat. And my dad goes, you're peeing on my boat. And she's like, oh, there's a hose on it. It's okay. You'll just spray it off. And I look over and I got a full face of, whoa. And I was like, that made me uncomfortable. So I can kind of relate to that. I would be uncomfortable too. I don't want to see your hoo-ha. I'm not in bed with you. I'm not Coach Shaw.
That's nasty, Adam.
Yeah. There was a lot more. And I'm sure Jen Shah probably looks 10 times better than this raggedy woman that I'm talking about. She was, I don't even know where she is in her life now, but she was out there.
So nasty and so rude.
Yeah, so rude. How do you just pee on somebody's boat?
I don't know why one would do that, especially when there's usually a bathroom there.
Yeah.
What did you make of Jenny trying to insert herself in that situation between Meredith and Jen? I just felt like it was her perception of Meredith is interesting though, because she feels like, we learned this earlier, we feel like from Jenny that she feels like when Meredith is upset, she will not, engage with the person. She will just try to ice them out. So she's a little bit more sympathetic to Jen. So it's interesting to see her insert herself in that situation and really get so passionate about, whether or not the two of them should remain friends or not. What were your thoughts?
Well, a couple things here. One, I don't agree with being so annoyed by how somebody deals with something. I mean, I agree with, I can get annoyed because you might handle conflict a different way. You might be like, I'm disengaging. And I'd be like, well, that's annoying. We need to have the conversation. But I'm not going to get passionate about it. I'm going to be like, listen, Richie doesn't have time for this. He's disengaging. It is what it is. I wish we could have solved this. But she did. She seemed like she was a little bit passionate about it. And I feel like there's conversations between her and Lisa. Like Lisa's maybe talking a little bit messy about Meredith behind the scenes, and it's kind of fueling that fire. But when she got in the moment where she chases after Meredith and she's like, do you want to be friends with her? Do you want to be friends with her? Exactly. Then shut the fuck up. I was thinking in my head, I'm like, I don't know if I like this or if you're giving me Askella vibes on Real Housewives of Potomac when you're chiming into a group that already has this formed kind of situation, sisterhood bond, even though it's only been one season, but they already have a dynamic. And all of a sudden, here comes Jenny, who was kind of like Zen Jen in her own way. She was always calm, hate to use that again, but she was always calm. And now you're all passionate and heated up and fired up. I was like, where did this come from?
It would have made more sense if it had come from Lisa who was doing her best to try to get Jen to, smooth things over with Meredith.
Right.
But, or even Heather, who might have been just frustrated from all of it, and wanted everybody to move forward. But it just seems so out of place for Jenny, because it's like, girl, you just started going here. What
Yeah.
Do they even know you like that?
That's what I was thinking in my head. I'm like, that's what, I love seeing more of Askella on the show, and I'm starting to get to know her. But now, later throughout the season, or maybe even if they bring her back next season, I would understand why you're chiming in, like where your voice is coming from in these situations. For Ginny, I'm like, we don't even know if you know Meredith. We know that you've been friends with Lisa for a long time. Lisa's been friends with Meredith for a long time. So you've probably seen each other in passing, but we don't know that relationship. So for you to run up to this woman who obviously does not like conflict because she disengages every 10 seconds, it was off. It was off.
Mm-hmm. We got an interesting question here who's from Zoe, who says, what do you think of Brooks having airtime with Mary about Jen? Do you think his mom is perpetuating it as her storyline and he should be fair game now? I'll answer this question in 3 parts because I think there are really 3 parts to this question. What do I think about Brooks having airtime with Mary about Jen? They kind of told a line about with where Brooks is going to fall at on this show. In one sense, I do understand that, and this kind of goes into the 3rd part of your question as well. If he should be fair game. And I guess that's fair game for people to critique his actions. I do think that once you step into the space of having a confessional, then you have stepped into the reality world and you lend yourself to, the type of criticism that people may offer about who you are, what you look like, what you dress like, what your style is like, what's going on with your brand. I feel like you do kind of open yourself up to that. And he's an adult at this point. Now, the other part about this is, do I think that, Meredith is perpetuating this as her storyline? I think we will have to wait and see how long this plays out before I can tell you whether or not I think that is true. Because for me, the proof will be in whether or not I feel like it's starting to become a dragged out thing. But what are your thoughts about all of this, Adam?
I agree with you with your first part of answering this question. I think at the moment, the very minute that Brooks is doing a confessional, it's not surprising that he's filming, right? He was filming a lot season 1. He's very much so a part of Meredith's life. They do things together. They look like they're kind of best friends. I have the same relationship with my mom. So I can see that, and I'm not surprised with him filming. But like you said, the moment you're doing confessionals, interviews, and you're sitting down and now you're talking with other housewives and you're putting in their mind what's going on and why you're upset, well, now that creates a space where Jen, even though someone from her camp, someone from her account liked these tweets, it wasn't her, but someone did, that opens up the conversation. And now she deserves to be able to chime in on that too, because you're both on the show. So if you're going to talk about it, now we can't go over here and chastise Jen for having a rebuttal or live tweeting back to that, because that's not fair. She can't, it's not kids are off limits, kids are completely off limits. Well, no, kids should be off limits, but when you're 20-something years old, I don't agree with the tweets. But now if you're going to comment on this woman and what's being said, she has the right to defend her actions or at least give us an answer. So you're just keeping the conversation going. Now we're beating a dead horse. And like you said, well, you said a lot, actually. I keep saying that. But to your point, I don't know how long this is going to continue. I'm hoping that this is not going to last the whole season. After episode 3, I'm over this part, because we just saw from Jen, she so clearly is making it known that did not come from me. What else do you want her to say? She's not going to give you the answer you want to hear. So decide, can we move forward or can we not? Because you're not going to get her saying, you know what, Mare, I was so wrong. I liked these alleged phobic tweets. I didn't mean to. I don't know what I was thinking. I was in a bad place. You're not going to get that. So if you want that, just friendship.
At all. You're not going to get that. I agree. There was another question that was interesting. Oh, we got this from Black Gal, who says Meredith tweeted that she didn't know Jenny prior to filming. So that is interesting that Jenny would say, you know, what I know about Meredith is this, that she will ice people out. So that's very interesting.
Which means that came from Lisa Barlow, which means now Meredith is sitting there and she's thinking in her head, oh, okay, so you guys had conversations with me. Or she's looking at it from the time that they started filming these confessionals and she's thinking, oh, well, maybe that didn't come from Lisa. Maybe you heard that from other people in the group because you had multiple filming scenes in this moment.
Very interesting. I got another really interesting question, and I want you to chime in on this one. Tony says, question, would that be the same for Giselle's daughter? She does have a confessional alongside Giselle. What are your thoughts about that?
I don't think that she's putting herself, like, it's different. Giselle, call her whatever you want. Shady is all get out, yes, but she has very respectful, well-behaved daughters who you can tell, even if they didn't like something, they reserve those emotions and they're not going to give that to you on camera. They're not necessarily built for the nasty side of reality TV, and they're not going to go on and throw subtle shade. You don't get that. If anything, they shade their mom, so I could never see them being put in that position, or they shade their dad. But I couldn't see them being put in that position. And if someone came for Giselle's daughters at this point, I love her daughters on the show, I would come for them because I'd be like, wait a minute, what are you doing here? You can't go after Grace and her bad driving skills. And when she scraped up the car yesterday, I was like, whoo, karma's a bitch.
I feel like this. I mean, I do think that there is some merit to what we said earlier about when you put yourself in that position to, you know, sit in a confessional, you do open yourself up to criticism. However, I do think the onus is on us as viewers to not lob that criticism against a minor, regardless of whether or not their parent has chosen to put them on that platform in a confessional. That's right. Just what I think. It is up to us as viewers to have a line that we're not going to cross in critique of someone else's child who is under the age of 18. That's my thought on it.
I agree with that.
There was something that popped up as well. And I can't figure out what it is right now. But anyway, let's see here. We got the kids thing with Jen. What are your predictions for next week? Because I think we covered just about everything that I think that we could have covered. What are you thinking about next week? What are you hoping for? What are you hoping ends and hoping to see? Let us know.
I want to use an analogy here. Okay. Mm-hmm. Ronald Richards gave Erica a timeline on when she could pay back a certain amount of money and he would waive his fee. I'm giving Salt Lake City a timeline because Beverly Hills gave us the deets, the drama, the scandal on episode 4. We're on episode 3 now. I need the scandal. So this 4th episode is your last like little saving grace of an episode before your buffer, before we get to the scandal. I am hoping that the conversation keeps moving. I want to see more. Do we get more conflict or more resolution or any resolution to begin with between Meredith and Jen? What's going to happen with that? Because until we get Jen's scandal, I'm not interested in Mary in her closet. I'm not interested in Heather Gay having these conversations with her daughters over and over again. Whitney Rose having her little good time scenes with her husband. I don't need to see that. I just want the legal drama. And that's unfortunate. It really is. But everyone loves a good scandal. I hate to say that, but that's what we're all watching for.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that we are really looking forward to the scandal of the whole Jen Shah thing. But I also think that there's some merit in, and as I was thinking about this last night, I said on my Instagram post, I said, you know, Potomac to me, that was last night was probably the best episode ever. And I said, you know, there's interesting because there was not much hype around last night's episode before the episode began. I just literally thought it was just going to be another, you know, fun episode, but it gave me so much more. And there was no hype surrounding it. There was no legal drama that was preceding it that made us salivate to try to figure out what they were going to show. So I think that the sad part, not really the sad part, the hard part about this is that now because we've been set up with this whole scandal, especially with that huge tease at the beginning of the season and what we've seen in the news, it's kind of like we don't really care about anything else. We just want to see how that whole scandal goes down and we want to see that play out. So it kind of sucks for the season because anything outside of that, we're not really here for.
Right. And also, to be fair, I think what makes this a little bit more juicy is we know Jen Shah's defense team, they were telling her, stop filming as soon as this happened. Stay off of social media. Anything that you do on film can be used against you. We heard this, right? And we also know that Jen Shah is maintaining her innocence. Now, if she just said, oh, they got me. All right, well, I'm going to court, then that would be different. But now we're watching this woman fight for her life. It's almost like Survivor. She is fighting against the allegations that have been thrown her way. She is fighting to tell them, I am not the ringleader of this alleged fraud ring. That is not me. I didn't have any participation in it. I don't know what that 1,000,000 pages of documents that you have against me are. And I don't know why you're trying to throw me in jail. That's why we're interested. We're like, wait a minute. You have this woman who you want to believe in the idea innocent until proven guilty, especially with criminal, like criminal cases. So I don't want to sit up here and like crucify Jen Shah and be like guilty. I want to know, why is she saying that she's innocent? Is she innocent? Was there a mess up? I know that sounds like a reach, but she had, unless you're just out of your mind and you did something, but you're like, oh, I'm going to keep it here. I don't know. That's why I want to know more.
Honestly, I'm intrigued by it all. And I know what I believe. And from what I've heard is that there is, and I could be totally wrong on this, but just like with that Hulu documentary that came out about Erica Jane, prior to it really getting into the season and getting into the meat and potatoes of what she was going through, you had this Hulu doc that came out, and that really preceded and kind of a little bit overshadowed a lot of what we were going to see on the show. I'm wondering if they aren't going to have the same type of little documentary special that comes out before these episodes actually air that will give us all the tea that we've been wanting and that we've been, trying to listen. People can watch your videos with Ronald Richards. We can look at his tweets and we can sort of piece it all together. But then having something like that put it all together for us, they better give it to us before somebody else does.
Right. And, the great thing about that documentary was it really gave a voice to the victims, and it really helped us understand how these people felt looking at Joe Rue Gomez and seeing, the burns, and it really it created a lot of emotion. The only thing I have to say about Jen Shah, if there is a documentary, she better hope and pray to whoever that documentary does not come out before her court case, because that will not help a thing. That will just make it'll be like, do you want us to fill your commissary? You know what I mean? Like, that documentary will be so bad for her case, especially because with the victims came out with very real interactions with Tom Girardi. We had voicemails. They explained to us how they were treated, how their conversations went with Tom Girardi. If we get real victims that come out and say, we had these conversations with Stewart or Jen Shah, and she told us this, but then now we're broken, we don't have any money. If anything like that comes out, it will not be good for her at all. So they have until March to do that. If you guys have a documentary coming out, it needs to come out before March if you want it to have an impact on anything to do with the case. And if that does happen, I don't see it looking or ending good for Jen Shah at all.
Side note, speaking of that documentary, you know who I love? I have been watching her channel. I think you guys should go follow her as well. Dana Wilkie.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Oh, man.
Is so interesting to me.
So Jason and I actually went down 3 weeks ago. We went down to Miami. It was the first time I've been to Miami since I moved here, and I just moved here a year ago in October. I can't believe it's been a year already. I was talking to you in my hotel room when I was traveling from LA to Florida. So this is crazy. But she was like, just come down and visit. We had so many conversations. So we did. And her and Jason sat and talked about, these Cirque parties at the plane hangars with Tara Reid and all of the crazy stuff that went on in them. And then Jason wasn't feeling good because he was a little hungover from the first night in Miami. And her and I went to the pool. We sat there and we were just having pool drinks, and we sat there for like 5-6 hours just talking. And she has stories for days, experiences. She's not someone to sleep on. I told her, you need to start a YouTube channel tomorrow. She said, will you help me with it? I said, yeah, absolutely. And here she is.
Thank God you did. Because
yeah, well, I told her
love it.
Yeah, I said she was killing it on Patreon. And I said, Dana, you already have this platform where people know you for the $25,000 sunglasses. So people will recognize you. And she kept on saying, people don't want to hear me. People don't want to see me. I'm like, no, they do. Because you have, like, she is like a PI. She's not just reading page 6 reported today that Cynthia Bailey is out. You know, she's like, guys, I looked into this. I looked into the court cases. And trust me, I had some friends that were in the legal system. And this is not right. And let me tell you why. I'm like, oh.
I love it. It's so intimate. I feel like she's just inviting me into her world, and I'm like, give me more. I need more than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I just had to say that.
Deck-a-dish with Dana.
I love it. I love it. So, guys, Adam, tell everybody where they can find you at.
Yeah, guys, you can find me on my YouTube channel, Up and Adam. We have a lot of exciting interviews coming. All of them they all got scheduled the first week of October. I don't know what that is, but we have a Real Housewives of Beverly Hills person, Salt Lake, and also Perez Hilton, which is going to be so random. But
oh God, that's going to be good.
Yeah, I'm just picking his brain. I had to book him out 2 months in advance, which kind of blew my mind because I didn't know Perez Hilton was still that busy, but he is. So I'm not taking away from that. So we have a lot going on. That's exciting. And then I had a lot of people reach out to me because when I first started my channel, I always did lives. That's what I did. And I kind of gravitated over towards pre-records because we're busy and it's sometimes easier, you know? Yeah. And then I was receiving actual emails and comments like, Adam, you need to get back to the lives because we want to share our opinion and we want to have the live chat. So I just started last Friday and it was a hit. We're doing hot, messy topics Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Guys, it's whatever's going on that day. If you want to chime in, give your unfiltered opinion, call in, participate, give it to me. If you don't agree with me, rip me apart. I invite it. I get excited about this stuff. I see some people are like, Adam, you're an effing idiot. And I'm like, oh, that one hurt. But okay, why? Why? Somebody said, are you a masochist? You want us to like attack you? I'm like, no, I don't want you to attack me, but I want you to share your opinions. And I don't want you to hold back. You don't have to agree with me. That's awesome.
Adam, you are so brave. I love that. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to our chat about Cynthia Bailey, Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, Heather's ponytail that I've been playing with right here the entire time. We have had another great episode of Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. We're looking forward to next week's episode, which will be episode 4 for season 2. And hopefully we finally get into some of the Jen Shah of it all. I don't think that we're going to get into much of it, but here is hoping. So we will see you guys here next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. And with that, you guys have a great week.